What's next for the San Jose Sharks? Now, that is a question I've been asking myself since the other day when we fell short to the Philadelphia Flyers in the Stanley Cup Final, and unfortunately, I still don't have the answer. There is going to be another season, at the very least, but what this team looks like exactly, I have no idea. Now, the issue is, we're not exactly in a position to do a full rebuild. There just isn't time, and it's not exactly necessary to completely blow this team up. I mean, we have a 24-year-old, allegedly elite goaltender. There's just no reason to fully blow this team up. But whether or not this team can repeat what they did, I'm not entirely sure. That is the goal, is to make it back and win the Stanley Cup Final next year. But whether or not that happens, again, I have no idea. Now, we do have the 8th overall pick in the draft, thanks to the Florida Panthers and the Logan Couture trade. So that makes things a little bit more interesting because maybe there is a play for a top draft pick. And if you look, there are 3 defensemen in the top 5. And maybe getting a Pasi Haken wouldn't be the worst option in the world, listed as a 2-way. Although Colin Duda's also there, a little bit less good with the puck. Yeah, Hawkins the best option. Finn heavy first round. Finn heavy top 5. There's also Korpakowski and good old Stuart McMuffin, because McMuffin's in the goddamn name pool. God love it. So we do have options, at the very least. That is the point. We could also use that pick to make a play for somebody if we wanted to. Now, here's the interesting question, and indeed, there it is. Was Erik Karlsson going to retire? I didn't even have a moment to build it up. Erik Karlsson is gone. As is Logan Couture and Jordan Eberle, but the important thing here is that at 36 years old, off of a season-ending injury, Erik Karlsson has called it a career. We get out from underneath that $11.5 million, which is gigantic news for us heading into this postseason. And again, that adds to why I said I wasn't sure what was going to happen, because I knew EK65 might retire, and he does. The problem with that is that we just lost a top-notch defenseman. We lost the most dominant defenseman in the NHL, winning Norris trophies consistently. He was under 100 points away from being a point per game in his career. Erik Karlsson, a surefire Hall of Famer, and now retired from the NHL. You also see the likes of Backstrom, Patrice Bergeron, Wheeler, of course Kopitar we signed on with. And then you have Logan Couture, who finished 1 point shy of 1,000 for his career. We deal him to the Panthers. We get a first-round pick. Turns out to be 8th overall in return. And then Couture retires. That's gigantic. And, of course, Jordan Eberle was a great soldier for us at a time. But we moved on when we had to. Ultimately, I think we made the right choice to move on when we did, because it was a very steep and just a very steep decline, very quick decline for Jordan Eberle. So the big news of today's episode, Erik Karlsson is gone. But there's a whole lot of money available now in his absence. So sitting there talking about maybe using that pick to make a play for a player, already established, that is certainly a possibility now, because we have a hell of a lot more cap space than you would have thought. We're also going to be getting a staff member here, as Erik Karlsson becomes a coach, as does Drew Doughty, Blake Wheeler, and PK Subban. So we'll look into that and see what's up with Erik Karlsson. And in terms of staff retirement, did we lose anybody? It's not letting me scroll. There we go. I was using the right stick and it wouldn't let me scroll. We didn't lose anybody, so that's good. But Erik Karlsson is gone. Whew. Where we go from here, nobody knows. Now, Haken, we don't know the ETA. We don't know the similar style. No doubt we have to interview this guy and try to get as much info as we possibly can to see if he's going to be worth drafting. I still don't even think the personality is worth asking about. Some people be like, it absolutely is, but I'm just saying we need to figure out the readiness more than anything. He is NHL ready. I think it was confirmed that he was a two-way, and if it wasn't, it is now. And we'll do the personality for the hell of it. So whether or not Pasi Haken is, or Haken, whatever, is the replacement for Erik Karlsson, or whether or not we make a play for somebody else, I don't know. But there is a two-way defenseman at the top of this draft. And whether or not I really care to interview anybody else, I don't really know. Korpikoski. I can't help but think I'm going to be using draft picks to make a play to get somebody already established. I just can't help but think that, although more info on Witt could be nice. We already know the ETA. We already know his weaknesses. We already know his strengths. Some people are going to hate me for this. I might even hate myself for that, but I don't really care about the interview process. It is draft day. Now, looking at the contract situation and what lies ahead, goaltending-wise, Gustafsson's going to need a new deal. And he's going to be looking for a decent amount of money, and unfortunately the extension dollars right now aren't great. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because certain players are going to have to be moved out potentially. You look at Vitaly Kravtsov making $10 million. Sillinger needs a deal. We know Riley Tufte's gone. There's no way he's going to sign for that cheap. Yeah, he's looking for $4 million. That was a one-year deal for him. There's a good chance some things change about this team. We know we're letting go of Darnell Nurse. There's a chance that I let go of Noah Hannafin if I can bring in somebody better. And then in the system, we already have the likes of Landry, who wasn't even signed. Strimbu's making progress. The question, I suppose, would be, who are the top defensemen in the league right now? And the thing is, we really don't need a top-notch offensive defenseman. We already have Thomas Chabot. We just need someone who can be a DFD next to him. And then, whether or not it's two-ways or more offensive-defensive pairings, there's a couple of different ways we could choose to look at this and go about this. So, looking here at the top defenseman in the league, what do we have? What do we have? So, Klingberg's on an expiring deal. He and Heiskanen, Jesus Christ, Dallas. Yeah, they're both still on Dallas, too. That's insane. Then you have Hughes, Chabot, Provorov. Quite a few defensemen over a 90 at this point. Let's get into the draft. Like I said, I wish I had a game plan. I don't. But we're going to try to make the best of this. And perhaps getting one of those defensemen in the draft will be the way to go. Just looking here, I mean, no doubt it's got to be Colin Duda, or it has to be Pasi Haken. All three, all these players are, of course, NHL ready. In terms of the assets that we have and draft picks, because again, we did get draft picks back for Logan Couture. We do have the 30th pick as well, and then we have quite a few picks in the second round. So we can make things happen. Not to mention, we have some goalies with a little bit of value, including Alexeyev, who might not be the worst goalie in the world to give up on right now because of how good Eliasson's been. And Alexeyev's numbers at both levels haven't been great. Except in that one playoff run last year. So we have the assets to trade up if we want to. Again, we already know we're going to be moving on from Darnell Nurse. I'll probably try to find a deal for him. I honestly think if we have Chabot, Foligno, Benin, Houston, we might not even need Noah Hannafin. I'm not opposed to having it be a younger defense who has a chance to get better. Just with the addition of whoever we pick up here, whether it's a pick, whether or not we make the pick, trade up to make the pick, or trade it away. The good thing is the top six is intact. Perfetti, Ellis, and Foodie's pretty much intact. And we have options for that fourth line. I'm afraid of being a little bit too reserved and not being aggressive enough with this. But ultimately, that might be the way we handle it. Let's see who Edmonton, and yes, the Oilers have a first overall pick. Har, har, har. They took Makinen, the medium elite sniper. The issue here is that nobody early on wants to trade these picks, which makes it incredibly difficult to go out and acquire a pick. But I'm going to see if I can hit a home run here by making a deal with the Ottawa Senators to get Makin, or whatever the hell his name was, and make the best of this. So Ottawa would have too many players if they brought on Alexiev. Do you have a goalie on an expiring deal? You do. Mad Shugard. What if I take him back? How close are we now? Still rejected. We have the 2 unsigned goalies. I'm not against giving up Schubert because we still have Schuster and Telkvist. Ralph Schubert looking okay if I had to give up somebody else. How about the 61st pick of the second round? I just want to see how close we can get here, but for me, a ton of these draft picks don't even have that much value. I think we're going to be okay regardless. What if I give up that pick as well? Yeah, see, we're still not close. That's how valued these picks ultimately are. Give up Noah Hannafin to save money and bring in his replacement is what we're potentially looking at here. Hannafin's solid. We've asked him to play a couple of different roles. But I think we can find someone equally as effective for less. He's extremely well-rounded. That might be too much because I do kind of want to keep Hannafin, though. I am a little bit worried about the amount of money that we have or do not have right now. It's going to have to be draft picks to pull this off. So if we go with those 2, still rejected. What has more value? The second round picks? It's got to be one of the other goalies too. Let's use Schubert. How close are we? Still rejected. Okay. This is going to be so damn expensive, but it's going to be worth it because we're going for a cup at the end of the day. Use another second round pick, and if Ottawa makes their choice, hopefully it's not the defenseman that I want. 2 firsts, a second, and 2 top-notch goalies for the second overall pick. Still did not go through. So I think we're screwed here. I think we're screwed. Unless we give up Noah Hannafin, I don't really see how we're going to make it out of this situation with what we want. Heinen and Fratton, there's just the value isn't there with anybody else except for Peterson, who we could give up. But obviously that's a lot. Ottawa makes the pick. They went with Duda. Let's talk to Pittsburgh. I'm not against giving up Peterson to get this deal done. We're essentially trading an elite potential forward who is looking pretty good right now. We're trading an elite level forward for a defenseman who's further along, which is what we need. I'm not against this if this goes through. I'll see if it goes through 1-for-1. It doesn't. The only question is just how much more are we going to have to give up to make this happen? Again, I'm not against using Alexiev. I just don't think he's going to ultimately be what we need. We'll add this dude back. How close are we? Still rejected. We're going for it. I want that defenseman. Now, I know he's not going to be the highest rated defenseman in the world. Like, he's probably not going to be an 80 plus. He's probably be like a 79. But I still think he's going to be worth it. Especially because, you know, how cheap of a deal he's going to be on compared to an already established defenseman over the next few seasons. That can't be overlooked. So So let's add that 34th overall pick as well. That still did not go through. Now you see why I never even try to trade up. If they don't want to deal it, there we go. We give up a lot to make that happen. 2 high-level second-round picks, Alexiev and Peterson as a forward, to bring in a defenseman that gives us a little bit more maneuverability over the cap and what we're dealing with. It is the Finn Pasi Haken. I'm going to go with Haken. Might be Haken. I'm not sure. The 18-year-old, extremely well-rounded. The defense isn't quite what we want it to be, but no identifiable weaknesses with an NHL-ready overall. He is the pick. He is a 77. It's a little bit lower than what I wanted, but again, we gave up 2 second-round picks and a goalie to get somebody younger and 6 overall points better than who we had in that forward, and it's on the defensive side, which is where we need more help. That's my justification. Do I think it worked out the best for us? I'm not so sure. Now, we do have the 8th pick. Purinton was there. We still have that 8th pick as well. So we still have moves that we could look to make here. You know, we're not completely done. We have $16 million in cap space, which again makes me think that clearing out a bit of space might not be the worst move. And again, we still have players to work with. Darnell Nurse is leaving for sure. Let me see what I can do. We know Darnell Nurse is gone. We know that Riley Tufte is gone. Let me just see what I can get for them really quickly, just to get them out of sight and out of mind. What can we get for one Darnell Nurse? 5th and a 6th. Again, I just want draft picks. I don't want the rights to anybody. 2 5ths from Philadelphia, 2 5ths from Toronto and Vegas. Let's take the deal from Philadelphia. Screw it. We'll send Darnell out east. And forward-wise, like I said, we knew that Riley Tufte deal was a 1-year rental. Just a cheap deal to make it happen. We might be able to get a 3rd-round pick there. I'd prefer that it not be from Anaheim. And we'll take a 3rd and a 6th from Philly. So there you go, Philly. One man's disposables are another man's treasure. Now, cap-wise, I'm just wondering, because obviously the RFAs, we have quite a few of them, and we're going to have to play that correctly. I think we should be okay, because now it's showing us $22 million in space. We know that $7 million of that is going to have to go to Gustafsson. Worst case scenario, we qualify the RFAs, move Noah Hannafin at the beginning of free agency, and we should still be good to go. But you look at this defense between Chabot, Hannafin, Foligno, Benin, Landry, Houston, Haken, Strimbu. Depending on the development, we could be fine as it is. And we've already shown by having Foligno, Benin, and Houston in the lineup that we can make it to the Stanley Cup final. So I'm not totally against the situation that we have here. In the worst case scenario, if we do have more money, we could make plays and improve this defense. The good thing is, like I said, the top 6 is already set. We are going to have to work out some things with some RFAs. But I don't really see a weakness right now, aside from the defense. But I don't think that problem is going to solve itself right now. I mean, I could sit here and look around at trading for a top defenseman, but like you saw when we looked at the list, it's not like teams are going to be super willing to part with these players in a cheap fashion. And without Peterson being here to use, I mean, we might be able to pull something off. Let's look around the league really quickly. Let's look around the league. So you have Ortiz in Anaheim. 3 years left. Wouldn't fit in on a top pairing, which is where we would want him. So he's not what we're looking for. The Coyotes have Charlie McAvoy. 7 years at 11.2. I mean, he would fit in, but you're talking about trying to trade for someone with a full bar and needing salary retention? Not entirely sure. Boston has Torrey Krug, but he's 35 years old. Rasmus Dahlin, same thing. We'd have to be relying on cap retention. But Arizona and Buffalo are options for us here. Who else has a top-notch defenseman? Bowen Byram and Cale Makar. Now, Byram's on an expiring deal. Makar, same thing. It would probably take some cap retention to not immediately have to deal with another Carlson-esque contract. Lincoln Henry from Columbus would have been perfect, but his deal's expiring. We actually don't know enough about the guy. And, Seth Jones is there. That Werenski deal, 5.5 for 5 years. But he doesn't, at least we don't know for a fact if he fits in well with Joe Thornton as the coach. And we don't, from what we can tell, know about Seth Jones either. And then again, Klingberg and Heiskanen, but both are going to want really big contracts. Detroit has Volkov, who is still on his ELC, who could play as a two-way or a defensive D-man. It just doesn't look like he's going to fit in on one of those higher lines. We don't know for sure, obviously. That info is not completely revealed, but, fog of war is not on, and it still won't tell you perfectly. So, Matt Dumba would take cap retention to pull that deal off. He fits in well, though. Montreal with nobody. Nashville has Isbister, but his ELC's up. Brant Clark. Could be an offensive defenseman, could be a two-way for us. We just don't know how he fits in. The Islanders, nobody. The Rangers have Moen. Jesus. Jack Moen, former 3rd overall pick. Could be a two-way. Jack Moen of the New York Rangers is looking like he could be a target to acquire as long as there isn't somebody who, is the obvious pickup to make with that 8th overall pick. All right, I think we're in business here. Although, Josh Morrissey, 87 overall at this point. He's 31. But in terms of being a two-way or an OFD, he could do it. He fits in well. We could make a quick little move to pick up Josh Morrissey. And then you'd be factoring in Shabbat, Hanifin, Morrissey, and we wouldn't exactly have to rush the defenseman that we did just pick up. So I will absolutely be considering that. Ghost Bear would require retention. The Canucks with Quinn Hughes. Obviously, that's not really going to do it for me. His deal's about to expire anyway. Morgan Riley is 32. Sergachev and Cal Foote, both on decent deals, but I like that defenseman on the Rangers a hell of a lot more. A hell of a lot more. Philly with Provorov. I think for defensemen, outside of Duda from Ottawa, who they just drafted, we have our targets. And I think it's Jack Moen. Doesn't have the best shot in the world, but is very well-rounded. And it's Morrissey if we want him. But it's Morrissey more as the backup plan, because if we can get this dude from the Rangers, again, it's Shabbat, Hanifin, Moen, Foligno, Benin, Houston. And then Haken doesn't need to rush. And we know that Foligno, Benin, and Houston can get the job done. It would basically be the same defense we had, just with Moen rather than Darnell Nurse. So again, we save money, and will give us the option to make a big play if we need to. So if we can get this guy from the Rangers, we have to, and we have the assets to pull it off, because I didn't give up first-round picks in that last deal to move up to get the number 3 overall pick. So it's going to take goaltenders. The good thing is with Schuster and Schubert, we don't really need them. We have Telkvist. I could give up all 3 of these goalies and not care. We have Gustafsson. So for now, I think Schubert is first on the chopping block. And we'll see how close we are with that. It's not going to be close enough, unfortunately. What if I use Schuster as well? Because they are interested in goalies, and you can see why. What if I just safety net this really quickly? How close are we? Rejected. Buffalo's about to make their pick. That's going to put us on the clock and remove the info that's on screen. Say we use this pick from the Panthers. Not quite. We still have another first. That deal's about to go through. Or that pick's about to go through, so I might as well back out. The Sabres at 7 take Reed. And we'll go ahead and call a timeout here. Pretty straightforward. Can we work out this deal with the Rangers? They are listed as hopefuls. But at the end of the day, they have a massive goaltending issue. Not that that means they'd want to take a massive step back getting rid of a top-notch defenseman like this, but at this point, I can't really care. For their interests, it's about what the hell's going on with us and desperation to win it. So what if we also give up the 30th pick in this draft? Still rejected. What if we give up the top 3rd round pick first? This is going to take a damn king's ransom to the point where it might have to be Josh Morrissey. It might have to be Josh Morrissey. Unless they have anybody with negative value that I can take back to boost this, it's not looking too good. So what if we take... I mean, yeah, really, do you have anybody that could be viewed as a negative value player? Cole Lind, who I could just release? Is taking on Cole Lind enough? It's not. I think we're SOL here. I think if we're going to get anybody, it's going to be Josh Morrissey. Which is fine, because I could potentially pull that off without having to use the 8th overall pick, and we can still bring in somebody else. I think that's the play. So as much as getting Mullen would be nice, I just really don't see how we pull that off. Because none of the forwards we have are really that much more valuable than the picks I'm throwing in there, unless we use Telkvist too. Which is insane. 3 medium elite goalies and 2 high-rated picks. But we have our goalie. And if he's not our goalie, then we don't win the Stanley Cup in this series. Let me safety net this just in case. What about now? It's not going to go through. So Moen isn't going to be able to be picked up. So we're going to go talk to the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to remove all that just so that no accidents happen. And we're going to see what's going on with Josh Morrissey, who is on a great contract as it is. But I'm going to see if I can work in cap retention to get him on just an absolute steal of a deal. And that would put us into a very fortunate situation if they're willing to do that. I think the reason his value is so high to begin with is that he's on a steal of a deal. So if we use Schuster and Schubert to begin with, I want to see if I can get away with getting this done without using that top pick. And we should be okay. Let me safety net this with a 3rd round pick next year just to be sure. So that would have gone through. They just don't want to retain salary. So we can get Josh Morrissey. I am damn well determined to get him on half salary. It might be overkill, and I might have to give up a little bit too much to get that deal done, but I'm okay with it. Will this go through? No, it won't. What about now? Still no. I'm willing to overpay to get him on half salary, just to make sure that we're good to go and re-signing everybody. So draft pick-wise, I'm going to start throwing in thirds to see if this goes through. The 2 goalies alone are good enough to get the deal done. That extra third, still not enough. And again, 3rd round picks, how often do they even have value to me? Which means they probably will in this draft, but I don't really care. Will that go through? Still no. If I can't get Morrissey on half salary, so be it, but it's worth trying. Boy, that is a lot of value on that pick. Let me use this one instead. Still no. Let's keep swapping these out. I got 5 minutes to work with, man. Will that go through? I thought it was going to for a second. Let's use the top-notch 2nd rounder. Will that go through? Still no. What if I use that with a 3rd? Will that go through? Yes, it will. So there we go. We give up 2 of our... I mean, at the end of the day, those 2 goalies on the depth chart in terms of importance were 3rd and 4th behind Gustafsson and the 75 overall goalie that we already have. We give up a 2nd and a 3rd round pick, and now we have Josh Morrissey, a defenseman of that caliber, on a $3 million deal for the next 3 seasons, really 2 seasons, next to Noah Hannafin, and then you factor in Foligno, Benin, Houston, and Haken, rounding out that lineup. That's the type of move we needed to make. And now we still have $19 million in space. We still have 2 first-round picks, including the 8th overall pick. I think we're good. Defensively, I think we're going to be all right. If there's not a player that I'm confident in having more value than what the 8th overall pick is already worth, then we'll move the pick. But I think defensively we should be fine. I mean, yeah, the one glaring thing missing is a top 4 partner for Hannafin. But I'm thinking we're going to have Hannafin and Morrissey as 2-ways on the second pairing and see how well they work together. And then we'll have Shabbat probably with Foligno. And then Benin and Houston as the third pairing if Haken's not ready to go. And we know that works. You know, having 2 OFD, DFD pairings and then 2 two-way defenseman pairings, or 1 two-way defenseman pairings, works out pretty well. So let's see if there's anybody worth taking with the 8th overall pick, and if not, there may be another play to make here. So we have Dallas Penner. We know he has a good potential, but the overall is not sky high. Korpikoski, we don't know for sure. McMuffin, we don't know for sure. Ken Savage, 1 year out, is interesting. Brian Dunham is also very interesting. Gord Witt in the same spot. So between Witt, Dunham, and Savage, all 1 year out, you know they're going to have higher overalls. There's nobody with a guaranteed medium elite. Okay, so if we're going to select anybody with this 8th overall pick, it's going to be Witt, Savage, or Dunham. Witt, 18, the closest to being confirmed as a medium elite. Witt's a little bit more well-rounded than Dunham, although Dunham has the shooting. Dunham had more points. And then there's Savage. Good defensively. Good defensively, at least appearing to be so. Now, Witt does have weaknesses. Strength is going to be a weakness for him, which is going to have him, probably have him with a lower overall. What's the value of that 8th overall pick? That's the question now. Is it better than what I think that draft pick will end up being? If it's a medium 6, that's going to be their value. If it's a medium elite, it's going to have more value than that pick. So do we take the risk or do we try to move this draft pick? Again, there's really not much we need to do. Gustafson's our goalie. We have Telkvist in the AHL. We'll have to sign a goalie or 2 in the offseason. Defensively, if I really wanted to, I could use that pick to bring in a top 4. And it would be a rental, depending on how many seasons we go until Haken's ready. But the argument could be made that Haken should be immediately played in the top 4. That's a legitimate argument. Like, even though he's showing up as a 77, we could play him next to Thomas Chabot and just see what that does for his overall. And then forward-wise, like I said, we don't need anything. Our forward core is so well established, aside from the 4th line, there's a couple of question marks. So I can go out and try to get another defenseman, although there's really not much I can do there. Morrissey was the best guy to get. Or we just make this pick and hope for the best. And hope to hit a medium elite, even though it's very unlikely. I think we're just going to go for it. I'm going to go it's tough. Incredibly loyal for Gordon Witt's an interesting one. The problem is we really don't need this forward help. It would just be more about, is one of them going to be a medium elite? I just don't know what to do with the draft pick, because who the hell else is even out there that we could get? This is really tough, man. If we still had Erik Karlsson, this would be a very interesting defense right now. It's still an interesting defense for what it is. There wasn't anybody else, was there? That was on the block for their team. That was a top-notch defenseman that would be easy to acquire. I don't believe there was. That's what made Morrissey so interesting. Like Patrick Kane's there, but that's not interesting enough to me. Dallas, of course, has those, the two players with expiring deals, but you've seen that I want to be somewhat conservative with the money that we do have, just because I don't know what those third liners are going to want. So I'd rather play it better safe than sorry. And in Ottawa, nobody. I think we make the draft pick and hope for the best, and hope that we get somebody back who has that high value. I just don't like my chances of that, but I think it's a risk we have to take, because now I don't have the value to do anything else. So we're going to make the pick. Oh, God. It's, against every fiber of my being, I want to say it should be Gord Witt, just because of mainly the personality, and hoping that he would be willing to stay on the team. Ken Savage is an interesting one, though, because he has a higher physical and defense rating, although not confirmed, than the other ones, which makes me think he's going to have a higher overall, but they're all 1 year out. So there's not much to go off of. It's a 33% shot of hoping we end up with the best one who has the most value. I just don't know where Ken Savage is rated. I'm going for Ken Savage. Medium top 6. Yeah. He's a 72. He's not bad. He'll have less value, of course, than the pick we just used to get him. But like I said, I didn't really see any other options out there. It was worth a shot. Dunham was the same thing. How far down did the other dude fall? Did I miss him? I missed the other dude that was drafted, right? It was Penner and McMuffin. Okay, so yeah, it was Witt and Dunham right next to one another. They were all the same thing. There was no use in stressing over it. They all ended up being the same thing. So that's pretty sweet. Anybody with an above 3-year ETA? 2 years for you. 1 year for Vicola, was it? Nope, it was 1 year for Vatanen. So 2 years away for Steckel. 1 year away for Tuukka Vatanen. Anybody else with an interesting ETA? No. Anybody else with a guaranteed potential? Doesn't look like it. So it is going to be either the defenseman, Tuukka Vatanen, or the center, Aaron Steckel, that we go with for this next pick. Steckel, concerns about emotions. And this dude with the Brian Leach comparison. Oh yeah, it's got to be that defenseman. Tuukka Vatanen. The 18-year-old is going to be the pick. 72, medium top 4. Not too bad. Decent value. About even value with what the draft pick would have been initially. So, really, we do have a good first round. Can't really complain about that. It's just what happens from here. I could probably trade. I'm going to trade up with Ottawa to get that forward, because he looks like the only guarantee. We might as well be a little bit aggressive. This episode's obviously only going to be the draft at this point. But when Erik Karlsson retires, that kind of throws the whole deal out of whack, and plans change. Like, if you were to say, hey, you're going to end up with Josh Morrissey, I'd be like, okay. You're going to trade up for the number 2 pick and give up a lot to do it, including Peterson. Okay, I believe you. I wouldn't have. Yet here we are. So let's go ahead and pick up Aaron Steckel with this next selection, 66. So I made the right choice getting Vatanen. Steckel, still not all that bad. Take a look at the upcoming class and see if there's really anybody else worth drafting who isn't multi-years away. We got a lot of players who still have pro comparisons. Owens was a medium top 6 gem, for whatever the hell that means. And nobody seems to have a lower ETA. So there aren't any crazy overalls left in the draft, it would appear. We're already at the point where it's just hoping for the best with potential. There is a medium elite goalie as well. So is there anybody with crazy attributes? Interesting attributes for Adrian Lewis, but nothing too crazy. Same thing with Winnick. Nothing too crazy. I'm looking for like A's and B's across the board here, and I don't think I'm gonna find it. I am not. So there's nobody that can really be viewed as can't miss at this point, or that I'm really worried about trading up to get. So we should pretty much be good to go. Now, guaranteed potential-wise, you have Clifford Shore, 5 years out, 19 years old. Even then, he's going to have good value, but I don't really think that's enough for me to care. All these players are crapshoot players. Even Tiyupkin isn't looking that good. I think we've done our damage. I think we've done our damage in this draft. I think I'm going to cash out, right or wrong. I think now is the right time to back on up out of here. As you see the second round, outside of Kennan's, it's, you know, a couple decent picks here, but yeah, the quality has fallen off hard. So we're going to cash out of this draft. The big thing, we trade up to get the number 3 pick, I believe it was, with Haken. We acquired Josh Morrissey. Erik Karlsson retires. We get rid of some draft picks to make that happen, but mainly some goaltenders and a top-notch forward prospect, which it really was the right way to go. Because again, we have one thing in mind, and that's winning a damn Stanley Cup. And the moves that we made today bring us that much closer to accomplishing that goal. As we get Buffalo's first-round pick next year, probably could have gotten a little bit more back, but it doesn't really matter. As it is, you see how many damn picks we have heading into next year. It's friggin' ridiculous. The second rounder might be too much. Probably will be. Yeah, we'll see if we can get the Sabres' third-round pick next year. Just going to bank on the Sabres not being good. There we go. And going to take one more trade to get rid of all of this, unfortunately. So Buffalo's next pick, that 4th rounder. Thank you very much. And I might as well, I think the low elite that was there, like 212 projected, should still be available. Maybe not. It's the penultimate pick of the draft. Let's see. 216. Is that low elite there? He's not. Well, anybody worth a shot? It's just going to be 5 years, potentially a 3-year ETA, unconfirmed for Plus. Let's go for it. Why the hell not? He's going to be terrible. Yeah, there we go. It's just why bother trying to trade 1 7th-round pick? So we end up picking up some decent players outside of Plus. The big thing, of course, though, the retirement of Erik Karlsson. Wheeling and dealing to rebuild this defense on the fly, giving us plenty of cap space to work with here. As, again, we do have some RFAs to worry about. Now, Gustafsson is not looking to sign a long-term deal. Good thing is, though, even after this contract, he's an RFA. So if it is a 1-year deal, he's not escaping and going anywhere. But since he is an RFA, we should be able to do yield 85% trick and drop this down to 615 if that still wants to work. Eliasson, I'm good with keeping as the backup after what he did. Might as well bring him back for 1 year, sign him to what he wants, hopefully. And then for other expiring deals, obviously that guy's going to be dropped. He was the random tack on. Houston is going to need a new deal. He's looking for basically nothing, which is very nice. Just drop that down to that right there. And then forward-wise, let's see what we have here with Cole Sillinger. I had a feeling he'd be looking for a decent little contract. We can knock that down to 5.3. So that's good. Ellison isn't looking for that much at all. So yeah, maybe we did play it a little bit safe, but the good thing is we picked up some prospects that we could move. We picked up Buffalo's first that we could move. We're still, we're still good. Like, if we think we need another top-notch defenseman in the middle of the season, we're going to be able to go out and get them. We're still going to have the assets to do that. So I'm still really excited for what this team should be able to do heading into next season. Heinen will just give him what he asked for. I'm not against bringing back Alex True. Maybe for that price I am. We are going to have some decisions to make, but it's going to be nothing too crazy. Let's see if the 85% trick just saved us a little bit of money the day before the re-sign phase officially begins. A lot of scouts deals are up, which is fine. Let's see. Connor Ellison's back. Ariel Hewson is back. Foodie re-signed. Sillinger, Eliasson, Gustafsson, Heinonen. Perfect. Very nice to have a series where players actually re-sign. So we have $8 million to work with. And in terms of expiring deals, obviously that dude's on the way out. Defensively, those three can be dropped. And then forward-wise, it's mainly going to just be between True and Chmelevski if we want to bring them back as potential fourth-line options. Coyle will be signing his ELC, and Afanasenkov will be signing his ELC as well. So that's really the only decision is what do we do with True and Chmelevski. When you look at the team, again, the top 6 for forwards, still intact. Pasternak, Meyer, Hurdle, Kravtsov, Gambrell, Sillinger. Third line of Ellison, Perfetti, Foodie. And on the fourth line, we're looking at probably Gregor, Heinonen, and then, honestly, I think True and Chmelevski are gone because Fratton's going to be pushing for a spot. Valcourt's going to be pushing for a spot. And I think it's time we give those guys a chance. So this team is set up, and we do have a little bit of cap space to work with as we head into free agency. And if there's another big player there, we could make a move if we needed to. And looking at pending free agents, I mean, the big thing would be a defenseman, Miro Heiskanen, John Klingberg, at least UFAs, some big RFAs, but two big names to potentially make a move for if we decided that that's what was best for us. And you never know. It just might be. I mean, we do have players that we could move out to make sure that that happens. So, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you very much for making it through. Again, I'm sorry if there was some downtime in the episode. It's like, I don't know about that. But again, some people like to see the process. Others, hey, at least you can fast forward through the video. But very eventful. And in the beginning of the next episode, we will finish up this off season and begin, if not outright complete, the regular season sim. Where will we be? Life without Erik Karlsson begins.